For many years, the galaxy believed Earth was weak. It was a small blue planet at the edge of known space, far from the rich star systems and trade routes. Its people stayed quiet. They sent out explorers, scientists, and merchants, but they never joined the great wars of the galaxy. Other worlds saw Earth as harmless a place for art, trade, and peaceful talks. But there were whispers. Some alien traders claimed they had seen strange shapes moving in the dark corners of the Sol system. Shapes too large to be stations, too silent to be normal ships. The galaxy ignored these stories. They thought they were just lies to make travel sound dangerous. Then, one cold night in the far reaches of space, a Zorath Empire scout ship passed close to the edge of the Sol system. The scout's commander, Ralek Vaughn, was known for his arrogance. He had no fear of small worlds. To him, Earth was nothing but a primitive planet that somehow managed to survive among stronger civilizations. He was hunting for mining routes. When his sensors picked up something unusual, metal shadows, drifting in formation far beyond Pluto's orbit, Ralek leaned forward in his chair, his ridged brow furrowing. The scanner painted massive outlines in red. Each one was bigger than any ship he had seen, longer than entire cities. Mining platforms, his second officer guessed. Ralek smirked, or old cargo stations left to rot. Nothing dangerous, but as the scout ship crept closer, the shadows changed. Lights began to appear cold, blue lights like eyes opening in the dark. One by one, hundreds of them lit up, and then thousands, stretching farther than the eye could see. Ralek's smile faded. These were not stations. These were warships. They were like nothing in the Zorath records. Their black armor absorbed light, making them almost invisible. Their shapes were sharp and predatory, with wings and spines like deep-sea hunters. They did not move. They simply waited in perfect silence, their engines humming so softly that the sensors almost missed them. Ralek's second officer swallowed hard. "Sir, they are targeting us." Ralek opened his mouth to order a retreat, but before he could speak, one of the massive ships turned. Slowly, like a predator locking onto prey, its glowing blue eyes fixed directly on the scout ship. Energy readings spiked on the scanner. Its weapons were charging. "Reverse course, now," Ralek barked. The scout ship's engines roared too. Life, but it was too late. The black giant moved with terrifying speed. A beam of light, pure and blinding, cut through space and stopped just short of the scout ship's hull. It was a warning shot, but it carried enough energy to split a planet. Froze. No ship in the galaxy could fire with that much precision. A voice came through the comms. It was calm, human. "Zorath vessel, you are trespassing in restricted space. Leave now." Ralek's throat went dry. He had never heard a human speak with such control. This was not a request. This was a command. The scout ship turned and fled, racing away from the silent giants. But Ralek knew the truth. Those ships could have destroyed him before he even saw them. They let him live on purpose. Word of the encounter spread through the Zorath Empire like wildfire. Some thought Ralek was lying. Others believed he had seen the return of an ancient fleet. But the few who studied the sensor data knew better. They had just discovered the Titan Armada, hidden for decades in the cold outer rim of the Sol system. Earth had been building something the galaxy could not imagine. Each Titan ship was the size of a floating city, armed with weapons beyond known. Science, and they were not alone. Thousands waited in the shadows, watching, ready to move at a single command. No one knew how Earth had built them. No one knew why the rest of the galaxy had never seen them before. But one thing was clear. The moment Earth unleashed the Titan Armada, the balance of power in the galaxy would change forever. Far away, deep beneath the surface of Earth, Admiral Cade stood in a command chamber, surrounded by holographic projections of the outer system. He watched as Rallick's scout ship disappeared from the sensors. His face showed no emotion, but his eyes were cold. "Commander," an officer said quietly, "our presence is no longer secret." Cade nodded slowly. "Then it is time to prepare." Above them, far beyond the reach of the sun's warmth, the Titans rested in the dark. Their blue eyes glowed faintly, silent, patient, waiting for the storm to begin. Rallick Vaughn did not speak during the long journey back to Zoroth space. His crew could feel the tension pressing down on the bridge. The image of those black giants with glowing blue eyes refused to leave his mind. He had faced battles before, but this was different. Those ships had not just been stronger, had been watching him, studying him, like predators deciding whether to strike. When his ship finally docked at the Zorath capital station, the High Council demanded an explanation. Rallick stood before them, his voice calm but his words heavy. He told them about the fleet, thousands of black warships hidden in the shadows beyond Pluto. He spoke of the warning shot, the human voice that carried no fear. Some council members laughed, calling it a fantasy. Others argued that Earth was too small, too poor to build such a force. But the Chief of Intelligence did not laugh. He played back Rallick's sensor recordings for all to see. The moment the Titan turned and targeted the scout ship, the energy spike filled the chamber. The readings were undeniable. Fear settled over the council, but fear quickly turned to arrogance. "They are still human," one counselor said. "If they have ships, they must be tested. If we strike first, we will destroy them before they become a threat." Within days, the Zorath Empire sent a small patrol fleet into Sol space. It was not a full attack, just a show of strength. 12 warships entered the system near Neptune, their weapons armed, their orders clear. Scare the humans, force them to surrender the fleet, and take control of their technology. The Titan Armada did not wait to be provoked. From the shadows of the Kuiper Belt, the black giants began to move. Their engines flared cold, blue, silent, and deadly. No comms message was sent, no warning given. They simply descended upon the Zorath fleet with the precision of hunters. The first Zorath cruiser was erased in a single flash. A beam of pure energy sliced through its shields as if they were nothing, cutting the ship in half before its crew even had time to scream. The second ship tried to turn and flee, but something even more terrifying happened, simply vanished from sensors, as if it had been erased from existence. The crew's last words were lost in static. The remaining 10 ships opened fire, filling space with plasma bolts and missile trails. But the Titans moved like shadows, sliding between shots, vanishing and reappearing at impossible angles. For every Zoroth shot fired, a Titan strike followed, silent, accurate, devastating. Within 3 minutes, the Zoroth fleet was gone. Not damaged, not crippled, gone. Across the galaxy, news spread fast. Independent traders reported seeing flashes of light near Neptune, followed by silence. No wreckage, no survivors. It was as if the Zoroth ships had been swallowed by the dark. The alien news networks began calling it the first strike. Governments everywhere demanded answers. How could Earth, a planet with no known interstellar navy, destroy a fleet in minutes? Some believed it was a lie, a trick by the Zoroth, to hide their own failure. But others began to fear the truth that Earth had been hiding a power far beyond anything the galaxy understood, in a secure chamber deep under the Earth's surface. Admiral Cade watched the battle recordings. His officers stood in silence. The attack had been clean, efficient, and merciless. Exactly as planned. Phase 1 is complete, a voice said behind him. It was Minister Hale, one of Earth's highest leaders. Cade did not turn. And now, we moved to Phase 2. A series of commands were sent out across the Sol system. Titan groups shifted formation, moving from their hidden positions. They did not gather for defense, they gathered for war. Asterisk far away in the Zorath capital, panic began to grow. They had expected Earth to beg for peace after a small show of force. Instead, they had lost an entire fleet, and the enemy was now on the move. The Zorath High Council debated for hours. Some wanted to send the full Imperial Armada to crush Earth before the Titans could strike again. Others feared that even their largest fleets would fall to this unknown technology. In the end, pride won. Orders were given. The largest battle group in Zoroth history would be assembled and sent toward Sol. But what the Council did not know was that Admiral Cade already expected this. He knew how the Zoroth thought, how their pride would drive them into overconfidence. The Titan Armada's next move was not to defend Earth, was to strike first, deep into enemy space, and destroy the Zoroth heart before the invasion could begin. The galaxy watched in silence, waiting for the next blow, and in the cold darkness beyond Neptune, the Titans turned their glowing blue eyes toward the stars where the Zoroth Empire ruled. Engines roared to life, weapons systems primed. No music, no speeches, no banners, only the silent promise of fire and steel. The first strike was over. The real war was about to begin. The Zoroth Empire's loss near Neptune became the loudest whisper in the galaxy. Merchants spoke in hushed tones about black ships that could appear and vanish at will. Spies from rival empires tried to slip into Sol space, but none returned. The few signals they sent before disappearing were garbled and broken, as if the very space around them was twisting their transmissions. No one understood how Earth had built such power in secret. No one understood what the Titans truly were. Far beneath the waves of Earth's deepest oceans, in places where sunlight had never reached, lay the truth. Decades ago, a deep-sea mining team had stumbled upon impossible ruins, vast metallic structures half buried under layers of silt and volcanic rock. The structures were older than any human civilization, older than any alien record. Their walls still hummed with a strange, low vibration, as if they were alive. When the first scientists touched the walls, their tools failed. Readings made no sense. Materials bent and shifted in ways no known element could. Soon, the United Earth Command sent warships to secure the site. From those ruins came the technology that would become the Titans. The ships were not built in the way normal warships were. They were grown. Each Titan had a living Cora, crystalline mind that could think, learn, and bond with a human pilot. Over time, pilot and ship became one mind, one instinct, moving together as if they shared the same heartbeat. Admiral Cade was the first to pilot a Titan during testing. He remembered the moment the mind core touched his thoughts. It was not like speaking to a machine. It was like meeting a predator that had been sleeping for centuries and was now curious about him. The core did not obey commands, it decided whether the pilot was worthy. Those it accepted became something more than human. Those it rejected never returned. The Titan Armada was more than a fleet. It was a living force, and Earth had learned to hide it well. But the Zorath Empire was not done. Their pride would not allow them to back down. In the war halls of their capital, the High Council assembled the Great Armada, hundreds of battleships, carriers, and siege platforms. It was the largest fleet they had ever sent against a single world. Their plan was simple: crush Earth with overwhelming numbers before the Titans could react. They believed numbers would win. Admiral Cade knew better. Through hidden wormhole relays built in the Kuiper Belt, the Titans began moving not toward Earth, but toward a dead star far from any trade route. The Zoroth Great Armada's course would take them directly past it. Cade had studied the Zoroth battle tactics for years. He knew they relied on rigid formations, on predictable movements. It made them strong against slow enemies, but vulnerable against predators in the dark. The Dead Star's gravity well was the perfect hunting ground. The region was littered with broken asteroids and clouds of frozen dust. Sensor readings were unreliable. Enemy ships would not see the Titans until it was too late. Cade stood in the command cradle of his flagship, the Titan Leviathan. The Mind Core pulsed around him like a living heart, blue light flowing across the walls. He could feel the ship's anticipation, its hunger for battle. Soon, Cade whispered. The ship understood. Hours later, the first Zoroth scout vessels entered the Dead Star's shadow. Their sensors flickered. The crew dismissed it as interference. They did not notice the blue lights moving silently through the asteroid field. Then, without warning, the Titans struck. The first wave tore through the Zoroth vanguard before alarms could even sound. Titans darted in and out of sensor range, their weapons slicing through shields with impossible precision. Enemy cruisers exploded into clouds of molten metal. Carriers were split apart like paper. The Zoroth admirals tried to regroup, but the gravity well worked against them. Every maneuver was slow, every retreat was delayed, and the Titans were everywhere, always ahead of them, always unseen, until the moment of the kill. On the Leviathan, Cade's eyes locked on the Zoroth flagship. His voice was calm. Target their command vessel. Break their chain. The Leviathan surged forward. Enemy fire streaked past, but the Titan's living armor shifted, bending reality itself around the shots. Cade felt the Mind Core's focus, sharpened to a single point. In one silent flash, the flagship was gone. Not destroyed, gone. The space where it had been was empty, as if it had never existed. The remaining Zoroth ships hesitated, and that hesitation was fatal. The Titans closed in, cutting down survivors until nothing remained but drifting wreckage. When the silence returned, the Dead Star's orbit was littered with the remains of the Zorath Great Armada. Cade opened a secure channel to Earth's High. Command, the enemy's strength is broken, he reported. Phase 3 can begin. On a dozen worlds across the galaxy, leaders watched the reports with dread. They had believed the Titans were simply powerful warships. Now they understood the truth. They were something far older, far stranger, and far more dangerous than anyone had guessed. And somewhere in the deep ocean ruins, where the first Mind Core was found, something stirred. The ancient walls began to hum louder, as if they knew war had returned to the stars. The Titans were not the only things sleeping beneath. Earth, the destruction of the Zoroth Great Armada sent a shockwave through the galaxy. The empire that had once claimed to be unbreakable had been shattered in a single battle. Their fleet, hundreds of warships strong, was reduced to wreckage, drifting in the cold shadow of a dead star. The news spread faster than light, carried by smugglers, traders, and frightened diplomats. Worlds that had once laughed at Earth's weakness now spoke its name in fear. But for the Zorath Empire, humiliation was worse than fear. In the Imperial War Council, the surviving admirals screamed for revenge. They argued that the Titans' victories were only trick surprise attacks in perfect conditions. Face them in open battle, one general growled, and they will fall like any other fleet. It was pride speaking, but pride can be as dangerous as any weapon. The Zorath mobilized every remaining warship they could muster. Orbital shipyards worked day and night, building replacements. Civilian transports were stripped for military use. Even outdated vessels were pulled from museum docks and armed with whatever weapons could be bolted to their hulls. This was not a fleet. It was desperation forged into steel, and it was headed straight for Earth. Admiral Cade knew they were coming. From the command cradle of the Leviathan, he watched real-time data flow across the holomet. The Zorath fleet was massive, more than 1,000 ships, but Cade had no intention of meeting them in the open void. Activate the deep net, he ordered. The deep net was one of Earth's most dangerous defenses, a vast field of cloaked drones, mines, and gravity traps scattered across the Sol system. Alone, each piece was deadly. Together, they turned the void into a killing ground. As the Zorath fleet crossed into the system, the trap closed. The first casualties came without warning, destroyers vanishing into hidden gravity wells, their hulls torn apart by invisible forces. Then came the mines, detonating in silent flashes that ripped battleships in half. Panic spread through the enemy formation as their perfect lines broke apart. And then the Titans arrived. They came from all directions, merging from asteroid shadows, rising from the darkness behind planets, bursting out of cloaked wormhole gates. The black giants moved like predators through a herd, striking fast and vanishing before counterfire could find them. One Titan slid beneath a Zorath carrier, cutting its engines with a single beam before it could launch fighters. Another appeared, in the middle of a cruiser group, releasing a pulse of energy that shut down every system within range. The disabled ships drifted helplessly as precision fire tore them apart, in orbit above Mars. 3 Titans formed a barrier against the Zoroth main advance. Their armor shimmered as enemy fire struck, the blasts bending around them like water, flowing past rock. Behind them, Earth's smaller defense ships picked off anything that slipped through. The battle raged for hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. Every time the Zorath gained ground, the Titans pushed them back twice as far. Every time they destroyed one of the black warships, 2 more emerged from the void. In the War Council chambers of distant worlds, leaders watched in silence as live. Feeds from the battle flickered across their screens. They saw the black silhouettes with glowing blue eyes cutting through fleets like paper. They saw the discipline, the precision, the utter lack of mercy. It was not just the weapons that terrified them, it was the calm. The Titans did not fight with rage or chaos. They moved like they were following a plan written long before the battle began. And then the largest Titan appeared. It emerged from a hidden wormhole above Jupiter, dwarfing even the great Zorath command ships. Its black hull stretched 4 kilometers, its spines shimmering with pale blue light. Across its side, ancient markings glowed faintly, symbols no human had written. This was Atlas, the first and oldest Titan rumored to have been found already whole in the deep ocean ruins, needing no construction, only awakening. Admiral Cade stood in the command cradle of the Leviathan, and opened a direct channel to Atlas. No words, passed only, a silent exchange between two living war machines. The massive Titan's main weapon charged, pulling energy from the void itself. For a heartbeat, the space around it bent and darkened. Then the beam fired. The Zorath Empire was broken. What had once been the most feared war machine in the galaxy now limped in silence. Its fleets were gone. Its trade routes lay in ruins. Its colonies received no protection, and its proud warlords hid behind the shields of their own homeworld. But survival had always been different from victory. In the ruins of the Imperial Palace, the High Council met for the last time. The chamber was dim, its great banners torn, its marble floors cracked from orbital strikes. The surviving councillors argued in hoarse voices. Some demanded surrender, offering peace in exchange for mercy. Others still believed they could rebuild and strike back one day. But even as they argued, the shadow of the Titan Armada grew closer. For the first time in their history, the Zorath faced a choice they had never imagined: submit or vanish. Admiral Cade did not march into Zorath space for conquest. He marched in for ending. The Titans moved like a black tide, slipping through the edges of enemy space, disabling outposts, dismantling shipyards, cutting off every escape. One by one, the last strongholds fell. The Zoroth people saw the black giants in their skies and whispered in terror. Parents kept their children indoors when the blue eyes of the Titans drifted over cities. No one dared to fire at them. Everyone remembered what happened to those who did. Cade's flagship, the Leviathan, led the fleet to the edge of the Zoroth homeworld. Planetary defense shields glowed in the night sky, their generators burning at full power. Hundreds of orbital stations floated above, their guns primed but shaking under the weight of what they faced. Then the Atlas arrived. The massive Titan eclipsed the sun for a moment, its black hull casting an endless shadow over the Zorath capital. The planet's oceans reflected its silhouette like a dark omen. Symbols across its hull pulsed with cold blue light, each beat matching the steady rhythm of a living heart. A single transmission cut through every Zorath frequency. It was Admiral Cade. His voice was calm, without anger, without joy. Your war is over. You have one choice. Stand down, or your world will burn. The High Council fell silent. Every eye turned to the Supreme Chancellor, the last figure who still carried authority. He had once been the loudest voice for war. Now he stared at the hologram of Atlas, his hands trembling. He knew the truth: the Titans could destroy his world without touching the surface. They could collapse the shields, shatter the stations, and erase the cities in hours. Finally, the Chancellor spoke. We will sign the treaty. The surrender was swift. Zorath fleets were dismantled, their shipyards dismantled or placed under watch. Earth demanded no tribute, no territory owned. One law: no empire would enter soul space without permission. Violators would face the same fate as the Zorath Armada. Many in the galaxy were relieved. Others feared more than ever. For if Earth could defeat the Zorath so completely and take nothing in return, what did they truly want? Admiral Cade knew the answer. The Titans were not weapons of conquest. They were guardians. They had been awakened not to rule, but to ensure that Earth would never again be threatened. Humanity had learned long ago that peace could only be kept when backed by undeniable strength. But not all threats came from beyond. In the deep ocean ruins where the first mine core had been found, sensors began to pick up unusual activity. The Structures that had lain silent for decades now glowed faintly, pulsing with energy. Seismic readings suggested something was moving far below. Some of Earth's scientists believed the Titans were only a fraction of what had been buried there, that they were not ships at all, but fragment slims of something much larger, much older. In the quiet of the Leviathan's command cradle, Cade stood alone. He placed a hand on the living walls of his ship. The mine core pulsed back at him, slow and steady, as if listening. "Is it coming?" Cade asked softly. The ship gave no words, only a wave of emotion, a sense of readiness. Cade looked out at the stars. The Zorith were defeated. The galaxy was quiet. But deep inside, he knew the Titans had not yet shown their full strength. They had been made for a greater war, one still unseen, and somewhere beyond the edge of known space. Something was watching. The galaxy would remember the day Earth unleashed the Titan Armada. But one day soon, they would learn that the Armada was only the beginning.